He owns and operates the Pack a Day podcast that airs 365 days a year with over 12 million views on YouTube. A new adventure begins. It's time for the Pack a Day radio show with Andy Herman on 1250 AM and 1057 FM The Fan, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and on the free Odyssey app.
Love? Yeah! Give me Jordan Love with the boom! Are you kidding me? Look at what he does to this professional defender. He turns him into a pretzel twist. This is cheese and pretzels.
Oh, Kyle Brandt, you are amazing. Welcome into the Pack a Day radio show. Happy Thursday, everybody. The penultimate Pack a Day radio show. We are live from the 1250 AM and 1057 FM The Fan studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. My name is Andy Herman. We've got Tommy Wirtz in studio. That was Kyle Brandt, courtesy of the NFL Network, celebrating Jordan Love's, I have to imagine, first angry run scepter of his career so far. Love that for Jordan Love. Tommy, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming he has not won another one prior to that.
I don't think so. I haven't seen him on any of that. That's an actual segment, Andy? I didn't know.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Tommy Wirtz,
Yeah.
you are not familiar with the angry runs?
No. I 100% have never seen Kyle Brandt screamo into a microphone after someone runs.
This is a weekly segment in the NFL. So, and it's a huge thing. So he's coined angry runs. So he looks at the angriest runs of the week from the week before and then crowns one winner of said angry run and sends them a scepter. Yes, a scepter as a reward and creates a shirt about the player with Jordan. Like the Jordan Love angry run shirt is epic. Like I almost ordered it. I might still order it. It is absolutely awesome. So no, this is a weekly thing. It's a big award in the NFL community. I don't know if the players actually care or not, but yes, it is a weekly segment, and this is what he does every single week is goes off on, one epic angry run. And it just so happens that this week was one Jordan Love. That was courtesy of the NFL Network. And again, Kyle Brandt, who is absolutely amazing. Today, we've got Jake Burns coming up, Browns film breakdown. We're going to break down the Browns in a much larger way today and get kind of Jake's perspective on where Cleveland is at. Would also love for you to join the show. Nicolay Law Fan Talk and Text Line 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250. You can also join us on YouTube and submit your comments that way. Tommy, first of all, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm doing well. How are you doing, Andy?
I am swell. We've got a lot to get into. We got our first real hint at the injury report. So let's start right there.
Yeah.
Cleveland is relatively healthy. DeAndre Carter is the only player on their injury list that did not practice in any capacity. And you might be thinking, DeAndre Carter, who the heck is DeAndre Carter? This is not actually an insignificant injury if he can't go. DeAndre Carter is their top kick returner and top punt returner, and he's very dynamic. And one of the things that I've been kind of talking about this week is if Cleveland wants to hang in this thing, they kind of need some turnovers or some big plays on special teams. One way for Cleveland to do that would be a kick return for a touchdown or a huge kick return or a punt return for a touchdown. And DeAndre Carter can deliver those type of plays. If he can't go in this one, that would be a big loss for Cleveland special teams. It's not like they're missing Myles Garrett here or anything, but that will be one to monitor for Cleveland this upcoming week. As far as the Packers are concerned, the only player that did not practice was Jaden Reed. Now we know that Jaden Reed's going to be out for the foreseeable future. It's just that he's technically still on the 53-man roster, meaning they have not removed him over to IR yet. So until they do that, they have to continue to report his injury. So he did not practice. Limited were Aaron Banks, Nate Hobbs, Josh Jacobs, Bo Melton, and Zach Tom. So Zach Tom, Bo Melton, and Aaron Banks did return to practice. Really good news from Aaron Banks. He said post-practice in the locker room, he's like, I'm playing on Sunday. So per Aaron Banks, he is going to be good to go this upcoming week. That's a great sign for the offensive line. Zach Tom, far less committal to playing this week. He did not seem quite as optimistic, or at least was not going to put that out in the ether. He said when he moves laterally, side to side, gets out in his sets, feels totally fine. He says when he has to run forwards, he said he can really feel the injury, and that's when it bothers him a whole lot more. They'll give him up to the end of the week to see if he can go, and you would certainly love Zach Tom to play when one Myles Garrett is out there. So that's going to be one definitely to keep an eye on. If I had to guess today, I would say my guess is that he doesn't play, but you never quite know with these things, and that's why they wait until game time to make those decisions, because sometimes you get that really good news right before kickoff of like, hey, actually it's feeling great today. And if so, we could maybe see Zach Tom out there against Myles Garrett. But right now he continues to struggle with that injury. But overall, good news there. And then full practice participants were Zane Anderson and Jordan Love, an indicator that Zane Anderson is ready to make his 2025 debut, which will be key for the special teams. And the big news on Jordan Love is he apparently did not have any sort of significant wrap on his left thumb whatsoever. So that seems to continue to get better and better as well. I'd say overall, good injury, healthier news here, Tommy.
Yeah, absolutely. And Zach Tom, while you would love to see him out there, especially when going up against one of the NFL's best pass rushers, it might be a good test for this depth too for Green Bay in a game like this, where if it is Anthony Belton out there or Darian Kennard, right? Like, let's see if there is a situation where it could become serious with a right tackle, if they're able to be that backup depth piece right tackle, right? Or do you have to move things around in a game where it is a little more serious implications at the end of it? I think that I wouldn't rush with anything with Zach Tom. I love to hear Aaron Banks is coming back because when that line is all beefed up to 100%, it might be my favorite part of the team to watch.
Love that. And here's the thing that, and Brett asked the question perfectly. So Brett, perfect timing. Thank you for that. Your check is in the mail. He said, Andy, if Tom is out, do you think Walker or Morgan play right tackle, or do they just go to roll with Belton? It's a really interesting question. And Brett, the truth is, and this is great for radio, I don't know the answer, but I do think it's a really interesting sort of question to kind of dabble with, because here's the situation that they're in. Rasheed Walker's playing. At left guard, Aaron Banks is now going to play there. Elton's going to be center. And then at right guard, you're going to have Sean Ryan. So that leaves right tackle up for grabs. And they have a multitude of options here. Now, Green Bay is all about best five on the offensive line. All right. So that's all they talk about. Jordan Morgan theoretically should be that next player up. And more importantly than that, like, he is, when he got to the NFL, the thought is that, hey, he can play left tackle, left guard, right tackle. Now, all throughout camp, he pretty much moved all the way around left tackle, left guard, right guard, but did not really do much right tackle at all. They focused Anthony Belton a lot on that spot so that he could practice it. So you have really four options here. Option one is you just put Jordan Morgan at right tackle. Now, when Zach Tom initially went down, and Jordan and Aaron Banks was still healthy at that point, the player that they put in that spot at the time was Darian Kennard. They didn't put Belton in, and they did not put Jordan Morgan there because I don't think he had practiced much at right tackle. I don't think they just wanted to throw him into that spot. But the question is now, if they know Aaron Banks is going to play and they have a week to practice Jordan Morgan at that right tackle spot, does he just take right tackle? That is one option. Jordan Morgan, right tackle. The second option is you go with the guy that you finished with last week, and that's Anthony Belton. They kind of started by splitting reps between Anthony Belton and Darian Kennard. Belton was the better of the two, quite clearly. And at that point, they just gave Belton the rest of the snaps, and they didn't rotate in Darian Kennard anymore. The third is Darian Kennard. I think he's the least likely option because Anthony Belton just kind of beat him out last week. So I don't expect it to be that, but that's another option that they have. And then to your point, Brett, I think a lot of people might maybe say, Rasheed Walker, what are you talking about? He's going to be the guy at left tackle. Well, Jordan Morgan's practiced a ton at left tackle. Rasheed Walker has not really done any right tackle, but he did come into the league as a right tackle. He has probably more right tackle experience than what Jordan Morgan does. So you could theoretically also put Jordan Morgan at left tackle where he is more natural and say, hey, we're actually going to take Rasheed Walker and put him over to right tackle. I think it's an interesting decision. Here's what I would say. I'm not moving Rasheed off a left tackle. I need to make one of my tackle spots a spot that I feel like, hey, that's going to at least be solid. I'm not going to mess with that whatsoever. I don't want to kick him to right where maybe he's not as comfortable. And now I've got Jordan in at left where that maybe doesn't feel great. So I'm keeping Rasheed at left. I'm keeping obviously Banks at left guard, Jenkins at center, Sean Ryan at right guard. And then I'm whatever the choice is there then between Jordan Morgan, Anthony Belton, or Darian Kennard, I'm rolling with. Based on what I saw last week, I'm probably going to start with Anthony Belton. I actually thought Anthony Belton was better than Jordan Morgan this past week. So I'm probably just going to roll with Belton. I actually liked what I saw outside of that holding penalty. He would have been my second highest graded offensive lineman last week had it not been for that hold. The hold was huge. It took points off the board. So it's unfortunate he got a little bit sloppy on that particular play. There's one play, Tommy, where Belton is at right tackle, obviously, and he's going against his left defensive end, and he just has like this sixth sense that there's a defensive tackle kind of like pinch into his side a little bit and kind of getting close to him. And like he's kind of blocking his guy, and just boom, like left hand to the defensive tackle, guy's on the dirt. He's in the ground.
I saw
and
that.
It's just like it's remarkable. Like, he didn't even look over or even like stare at his work. He's just blocking his guy, offhand, boom, guy in the dirt. End of that guy's day, or the play at least. And then he just keeps blocking his guy. He's just a powerful dude that once the technique comes around, the talent is going to take over even more. But you see some of just that raw physical strength that he's got. And man, it's fun to watch from time to time.
Well, and I don't want to overlook the Browns and the 2025 season, but looking at Anthony Belton's future, I think some people had him profiled as a guard. Some people have him profiled as a tackle. You've now locked up Zach Tom for the foreseeable future, and you invested your first-round pick, and he's looked fine in his first 2 games here. Jordan Morgan, who's the left tackle of the future, like, what the heck? Now Anthony Belton looks great at tackle, and there's only 2 tackles, Andy. So where does he go from here?
That is a great problem for 2026. I mean, I think the beautiful thing is that, well, Rashid is probably going to be gone. So you're going to open up a tackle spot, but that theoretically is probably Jordan Morgan at left tackle. But Morgan can play left tackle, left guard, right guard. So you have versatility there. You know, Elton Jenkins, if he's still on the roster next year, they've got a $20 million decision to make with him, similar, kind of what they had with Jair Alexander this year. But he can play left guard, center, right guard. He can even dabble at tackle a little bit if you want. You don't want. You just want him inside for sure. He probably stays at center if he's here. Sean Ryan, if he comes back and play either spot, you just got a lot of guys. Aaron Banks could theoretically play left guard and right guard as well. And then Anthony Belton, to your point, probably right tackle, maybe right guard as well. And then Zach Tom can play literally all 5 spots. So you kind of let that play out next year. I think in the long term, you're probably looking at Jordan Morgan at left tackle and then Aaron Banks at left guard, assuming he's back, Elton Jenkins at center, and then Belton at right guard and Zach Tom at right tackle. I think Belton and Tom together on the right side kind of form a really fun partnership. Kind of like a power and speed, almost like a thunder and lightning on a right side of the offensive line. You usually talk about that with running backs, but they kind of would form it on the offensive line. So I think that's what it looks like, but they'll have options. And they're going to have to add some more pieces there too, because the depth will be very concerning. Darian Kennard's a free agent. Rasheed Walker's a free agent. Sean Ryan's a free agent. If you lose all 3 of those players, you're going to have to rebuild some of the depth there in a pretty significant way. So that offensive line will look different next year for sure. What that exactly looks like, thankfully, they've got about a year to kind of figure that out. Let's, as we're talking here on the Pack-A-Day Radio Show, live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, the Fan Studios, and powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook, I did finally get the opportunity to finish up my film review. I know we're a week later, so I know everyone's kind of on to Packers and Browns, but just kind of really quick going over some of the best and worst graded players from this past week. It's not going to surprise anyone. Tucker Kraft was my highest graded player on offense this past week. For those of you who don't know, I go through grade every player and every play. I've been doing it for 9 years. I think it's now this year. Tucker Kraft, really impressive day at tight end. For the most part, you guys saw all of his incredible plays. So there's not too much more to dig into. I thought he was solid as a blocker. A couple of really good blocks, a couple of blocks he'd like to have back. Grade would have been higher had he not had a very hilarious false start penalty where he false starts, but is wise on it. So tries to take the false start and go in motion with it to pretend that he was actually just going in motion and not false starting. Unfortunately, the refs were on to him and they did in fact catch him for that false start, but really great day from him. Jordan Love was second on offense and, 2 big misses to Matthew Golden. But outside of that, had the beautiful play to Jaden Reed. I know it gets called back via penalty. That's not something that you should take away from Jordan Love on that particular play. Beautiful ball to him. And then, the ball to Malik Heath. Commanded the offense all day long, kept the offense in rhythm. I thought Jordan had a really nice day overall, but certainly a couple balls that he'd like to have back. No interception-worthy plays, though. No turnover-worthy plays is what you also love to see there. Number 3 is a player who had 0 catches on the day. And that's Matthew Golden. Dude was open all day long, including what should have been a 90-plus yard touchdown, including what should have been a 40-plus yard touchdown. It's unfortunate that Jordan missed him on those 2, and he kind of was the only one that kind of was affected by 2 bad Jordan throws on the day. But not only on those 2, but through the rest of the day, he was open all day as well. If they start looking his way a little bit more and start connecting with him, he's going to break out in a pretty significant way. My bottom three on offense, all offensive linemen. Jordan Morgan, we talked about. I thought he had a tough day. A little bit disappointing from him overall, but I do understand that they've kind of moved him from tackle to guard to right guard to left guard, and he hasn't really been able to settle in a spot. That's going to be something that he's going to probably have to continue to do. So he's going to have to kind of work on that. Sean Ryan also, I thought, had a little bit of a tough day this week. And then Darian Kennard, there was a reason that they benched him. Had one play where he allowed an immediate pressure and then also went the wrong way on one play, which never helps either. All right, on top three on defense, Micah Parsons plus 1.40 grade. Dude was an absolute terror all day long. Literally couldn't block him. Didn't matter if they double teamed him. Sometimes they even triple teamed him. He was just a complete and utter menace, getting to the quarterback, getting held. He's been everything that you could have possibly hoped for. An absolute stud in this game. And Washington, quite frankly, had no answers for him whatsoever. Keyshawn Nixon was number 2, a plus 1.25 grade. He, of course, all the pass breakups, he was extremely sticky in coverage, tackled well, quite easily the best defensive day of Keyshawn Nixon's career. He's had some pretty impressive special teams day, but defensively, that was his best day. And then Edgerrin Cooper was my third highest graded defense. PFF didn't like him quite as much. I'm not exactly sure why. He was flying around the field. They used him on some really fun blitzes on a couple different occasions that led to immediate pressures and 1/2 sack, sharing it with Micah Parsons. And he tackled really well on the second level and was just all over the place with his speed. So really liked the day from Edgerrin Cooper. Bottom 3 on defense, Carl Brooks was really the only one that graded any sort of real significant way in the negative. They gave him basically what Washington did is they decided, hey, there's going to be one player that we're going to leave kind of one-on-one. We're going to double team Micah. We're going to double team or at least get a chip on either Rashawn Gary or LVN at edge. And then who's ever at the other defensive tackle spot, whether it's, usually Wyatt or sometimes LVN in there, we're going to make sure we get a second set of hands on them, but we're going to make it so that Carl Brooks is the only one getting a one-on-one. And I just didn't think he won that enough, especially for the one that was able to get some of those looks. So definitely, again, one that he would like to have back. And I think some opportunity for improvement there from Brooks. The other two were Xavier McKinney and LVN. I wouldn't read anything too much into that. They were both basically neutral grades. For Xavier McKinney, I'll talk about a little bit more. He's just playing so much deep safety, and no teams are challenging him down the field, that he has very minimal opportunity to get positive plays. Like Evan Williams is the one that's kind of coming up and playing the box and getting some tackles and doing some fun stuff. And X is a lot of the times the ones that's patrolling the deep, the deep safety position. And when they're not throwing down the field, he just doesn't have really any opportunity to make plays. Meanwhile, he did have a penalty in the end zone. He also had a missed tackle. So he had a couple negative plays and just didn't have the opportunity really to kind of make up for it. That's why you have the small negative, but nothing to worry about there. Xavier's still been great. And even after the first game where I know PFF had him in the kind of a negative grade there, Jeff Hafley said it was the best game that he has seen him play with the way that he flew around and kind of covered that back end. So X is still playing great. No worries there. It just, he hasn't had much opportunity to make positive plays. So those are some of my best and worst graded players from week 2. Of course, we got week 3 coming up against the Cleveland Browns. Let's see, what else do we want to get to here, Tommy? I just want to talk about Jaden Reed really quick. We talked about kind of the injury report, but for Jaden Reed, first of all, he had double surgery. So he not only had the collarbone surgery, but he had the foot surgery as well. So the foot was a real legitimate issue. He was playing through it. Here's the good news. With that foot surgery, I think there was a lot of question, I know from myself included, of, all right, we knew the collarbone was going to take about 6 to 8 weeks. Well, what about this foot surgery? Is that going to be like a 10 to 12? Is that going to knock him out for the season? What does that do? And per Matt LaFleur, it will not add to his timeline at all. It's on the same timeline as the broken collarbone. So hopefully we get a fully healthy Jaden Reed back in about 8, even if it's a few weeks longer than that. The big thing is when you are in playoff mode and getting ready for the playoffs and the season's kind of coming to a climax, you want him out there at his best. And hopefully by him getting the 2-for-1 surgery special at wherever he went to get surgery, this is hopefully going to set Jaden Reed up for success for the rest of the year once he's back.
Yeah, Andy, I just have a question. Like, how bad or not bad are they going to miss Jaden Reed during this time? Because it seemed like he was getting more and more phased out of the offense with Matthew Golden coming in. Once Christian Watson comes in, that's going to happen too. I just don't know how I wish Jaden Reed was playing, and I wish him nothing but the quickest recovery. But as far as Packers offense missing a beat, I don't know if I see it anymore if Jaden Reed is not on the field.
Here's what I'll say. I think there's an opportunity that this is kind of a blessing in disguise. They'll miss him, but it's not going to be significant. And the reason that I say that is, I think the collarbone injury is going to allow him to get that foot healed as well. And we already heard again that he had the surgery on the foot. I think that's really important because otherwise it felt like both his shoulder / collarbone and his foot were probably ticking time bombs where it was going to happen eventually. And you didn't want it to happen like right before the playoffs or something like that. So I think that's a really great piece of this is that he's going to be able to get fully healthy. And again, to come playoff time, hopefully be fully healthy for this team. I think the second thing is if there is an injury like this that you can survive anywhere, it's probably at wide receiver. They have the depth there. And like you said, Christian Watson coming back soon. But the other reason is this is going to force Matthew Golden and Savion Williams to become even more important for this offense right now. And I think that's ultimately a good thing. There may be some hiccups along the way. It may not be quite as clean always as maybe having Jaden Reed out there. But I think getting those two more ingrained in this offense, more opportunities, more reps is going to make them better. And that just gives you, again, better depth, better receivers, and better chemistry with those wide receivers towards the end of the year as the rest of the season goes along. So I actually think it's going to be really important for their development. And especially as they're kind of right now, this is going to be Wicks and Dobbs as your kind of veteran receivers, and then Golden and Savion Williams. Yes, Malik Heath will play a smattering of snaps here and there, but Savion Williams and Matthew Golden are at worst your 3 and 4 wide receivers right now. And Golden's probably closer to that number 2 at the moment. So they're going to get thrown into this thing. I think we already heard from Jordan Love yesterday that Matthew Golden is going to play a lot more in the slot, which I think is very conducive to his skill set. Listen, from what I saw on Golden last week, he's going to get open a lot. And it's just a matter of time before he has that breakout performance. So if you're stressed, nervous, freaking out that he's got a couple catches only on the season and hasn't been able to do a whole heck of a lot, just be patient. It is coming, and it's probably coming sooner rather than later for Matthew Golden. We've got a lot more to get to here on the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. Reminder that Football Talk and the Fan is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday, all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. We are 64 and fair in Milwaukee, high of 79, low of 63 later tonight. We'll be right back with Jake Burns. This is the Pack-A-Day Radio Show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We are back in the Pack-A-Day Radio Show live from the 1250 AM at 105.7 FM, the Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Reminder that the Mason Crosby Show is coming up next from 9 to 11. Also, Middays with Thunder today. Pretty solid guest at 11:30 a.m. Pat Murphy coming on at 11:30. That is a awesome guest for Thunder, so definitely make sure to check out that as well. But right now we are being joined on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law, the one and only Jake Burns, Browns Film Breakdown. You can find him on social media at Jake_Burns18. Jake, we had the opportunity to talk yesterday on your show. Welcome into the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. Appreciate you joining us, my friend.
Of course, man. My pleasure.
Yeah, let's start with this Browns season so far. I know on paper 0-2 hasn't exactly been the sexiest start for Cleveland, but walk me through what you've seen from this Cleveland Browns team in totality so far.
Yeah, it's a matter of expectations, Andy. It's a group that is, the most important position in football, pretty underwhelming in terms of what's there. Now there's some hidden, not necessarily hidden, but some unknowns about the two rookies they selected a little later in the draft. We'll see if those guys get a chance to play. But, the obvious expectation is that the Browns are maybe a year or two away. They've put together a pretty strong draft, which we can hit on some of those guys so far contributing. But the expectations are sort of low because they're working through the fallout and what comes with the Deshaun Watson stuff, and that he can't be a contributor in any way, shape, or form. So you go into this year, some solid veterans, some guys in place who you think can obviously still be a part of winning football, but obviously understanding the hindrance that they're dealing with at quarterback and trying to navigate that. Expectations have been in check. They should have won week one, in all honesty, outgained Cincinnati, doubled up their yardage, held the Bengals to 7 yards in the second half total. And that was, when Joe was healthy. So there's reason to believe they should be 1-1. They missed a kick in the second half. They had a couple balls hit receivers in the hands, bounced to defensive backs. So some really weird fluky stuff happened in that game. Missed a 36-yard field goal that would have put you out in front with a couple minutes left. Baltimore's just a different class of organization right now. I think the way their roster stands, it's a group that's competing to get to the Super Bowl, and the Browns kept it close for like 2.5 quarters into the late third quarter before the floodgates opened a little bit there. So it's 0-2, understanding that there's a difference between the second opponent in terms of where the roster between the Browns and Ravens stand, but they could have easily beaten Cincinnati at home, where they traditionally, the Browns do play a little better at home. That's most teams, obviously, but they just have defensively a better track record at home because of the crowd volume and the snap count jumping that they do up front and that stuff that they're able to get off. So, it's about what we expected. And it's disappointing in some spots, but also some reasons for optimism as they try to kind of like retool the roster on the fly.
Yeah, I've certainly seen the same thing, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Let's start on offense, though. If I told you that the Browns won this game, what on offense were they able to accomplish to put up points against Green Bay?
Well, they'd be able to run it. They haven't been able to run efficiently for I wouldn't expect your fan base to remember this, but Nick, well, maybe you do, because it was on Monday Night Football. Nick Chubb had that gruesome knee injury at the start of 23. And since then, Nick was one of a kind, man, real creator in the run game, vision, stuff that really helped them alleviate some of the stressful run stuff that they like to put in place, which I consider outside zone a stressful run. It's got a lot of cuts, got a lot of reads, got a lot of things that are dependent on other things. And from there, it's gone downhill efficiency-wise, and they haven't been able to find it. They have been using different players over the course of the 23 and 24 seasons that haven't rendered much success. Jerome Ford, one of them. They drafted a couple guys. Quinshon Judkins, who's now back and playing, and it should be playing this week again. And then Dylan Sampson in the same draft, which is so rare, trying to retool the running back room. If they win this game, it's because they're able to run it. The first 2 weeks has not been efficient run game, and the pathway to Browns wins is running it efficiently, taking care of the football, and then taking some advantageous shots downfield off of run game efficiency. And they haven't had much run game efficiency. So if you're asking me, what does it look like? Well, they take care of the ball. They've lost the turnover battle 2 weeks in a row, and they've given turnovers in really rough spots. One interception last week returned to their 5-yard line, another fumble scooped and taken to the house. The 2 interceptions against the Bengals, like I said, hit the hands of receivers and popped, unfortunately, right into the hands of Bengals defensive backs. So they've really beat themselves for 2 straight weeks. So it's really taking care of the football. Can they find some run game efficiency and then build some of that play action, run action, pass off of that stuff? So that's the world they need to get better at to live in. They've been dropping Joe Flacco back 45 to 50 times a game. And no offense to Joe, his advanced age and his lack of mobility at this point, you can't consistently live in West Coast staple passing where you're throwing between 0 to 7 yards down the field. Teams will eventually sit in low hole cover threes and take it away in man coverage to make you have to hold on to it past 2.5 into the 3-second range. And if they're living in that world again, it's the third quarter, and Joe's got 31 dropbacks already. It's probably not a good place for the Browns.
No, I think you're probably right in that assessment. And yeah, if Cleveland wants to take one more week to kind of get some of those issues ironed out, we certainly wouldn't mind it either. But we're being joined by Jake Burns, Browns Film Breakdown. You can find him on social media at Jake_Burns18. Let's flip it around. Defensively, what does Cleveland need to do to, Green Bay's offense has been fine, good. They've scored 27 points per game in both their games. It certainly hasn't been bad, but they haven't exactly been clicking on all cylinders either. What does Cleveland's defense need to do to kind of keep this close and, again, give them a chance to win this game?
Well, on offense, I talked about taking the run and producing some results that are meaningful to creating opportunities off of it. I think it's, again, they've had against Chase Brown week 1, against Derrick Henry, they held to 20 yards in week 2. They've shut down the run. And I think if you can keep Josh Jacobs bottled up and make it a one-layered concept that they really take away some of the second level guys, the linebackers and safeties creeping closer to the line of scrimmage, getting involved in some of those run action looks, because LaFleur is as good as anybody at scheming up some of those mirrored run pass looks. If you can get the run game as a net negative, keep that separation in place, and then be able to defend the pass a little bit more efficiently, I think that gives them a chance, probably largely because they can get after the quarterback. This front is really good. I would consider this group as talented top to bottom as anyone in the league. I mean, it's right there. I know you guys are pushing the envelope on that a little bit. Maybe slow down if you could for a week, like you asked me a second ago. You could take a break on that. But no, I mean, Miles is at the peak of his powers. He's been so efficient the first 2 weeks. He just creates chaos. They got another young guy named Isaiah McGuire on the opposite side, a mid-round pick who's really coming into his own. Good length in the run game, really shuts down edges, and then he plays so hard. Compliments Miles well. Inside, Mason Graham, the 5th overall pick, is starting to figure things out, producing especially in the run game. Really hard to block because he just knows how schemes work and he knows where to take angles. Then they have Malik Collins, who's a veteran, but as far as the veteran market goes and pass rushing interior players, he's really good. So they like those 4. They really like rotating in Shelby Harris, who's a veteran. They got this young kid named Aiden Huntington, who's a UDFA, who just is a firecracker, undersized, but plays so hard and really creates some disruption. And then they got some other pieces like Alex Wright, who's another young player they've developed and brought along, and they've gotten a lot of production from those guys. And when they can really tee off, they made life difficult on Lamar, and they made life really difficult on Joe Burrow week 1, especially, like I said, at home, where you get the silent counts, you have to tap the center, you get those more anticipatory jumps. You can put Green Bay into just a ton of a high volume of second and pass, third and pass situations. That's probably where the Browns find some success. If Josh Jacobs and the group are able to find run game efficiency and keep that sort of balance in check, that's a dangerous place to be because of, like I said, the designs and concepts that I think LaFleur puts in place that can really put a stress on you at the second and third levels of just kind of remaining true to your responsibility.
You're hearing from Jake Burns, Browns Film Breakdown. Follow him on social media at Jake_Burns18. Now, Cleveland's living in a lot of man coverage, a lot of cover 1 on the back end of that defense. That obviously puts some stress on guys like Greg Newsome, Denzel Ward, etc. How do you feel about the corners in the secondary kind of holding up from their side of things, especially when it comes to man-to-man coverage?
Well, yeah, Jim Schwartz it's been his MO for 3 years. That's what he loves. He loves to put pressure on quarterback. He's had 3 great defensive lines, and that's their envelope is like, we're going to make you hold on to it a beat longer than you want to and try to create chaos up front. And so, yeah, it's been tough. They lost a young man named Martin Emerson going into the final year of his rookie deal. He tore his Achilles in the preseason. Really kind of put some stress on this group. I think if they were chasing things, Andy, like they thought, because it doesn't matter what I think. If they thought they were a playoff team or a contender, they probably would have signed another corner. They didn't. They're giving young guys an opportunity. So Martin leaves a void outside. They took Greg Newsome, who they took in the first round of the 21 draft, who they moved inside when they selected Emerson because Emerson had played so well, put him back outside. So Greg and Denzel Ward, and I think Denzel's as good as any corner in the league as far as pure coverage goes. Those 2 are fine. They're good players. They'll be fine. They've been fine to start the year. I think Greg is more comfortable outside across Denzel. They'll travel them. They'll move them. They're not really restricted to one side. They're fluid and they're good. The problem is that last week, a young man named Cam Mitchell, they took out of Northwestern 3 years ago, and then a young man named Miles Harden, who they took from South Dakota State, a nice player, had a good Senior Bowl prep and all that stuff. Actually, was a Shrine Bowl guy, but they put those two into the primary slot corner roles. And last week they threw 4 touchdowns. Baltimore did. It was against those two guys, 3 of which came against Mitchell, 1 against Harden. Now again, DeAndre Hopkins, one of the best ball chasers we've seen in the league in the last decade, had a couple winning plays, but they really scheme those guys up. I expect LaFleur to go after them when they're on the field. They will rotate in some big nickel stuff. They've got some veteran safeties. Devontae Casey, who's been in the league for a while, they'll play a little bit at free, and then Rayshon Jenkins, who's been in the league for a little bit there too. They'll play some big nickel, but I think, like, again, against teams that don't live in heavy personnel, they have to play a corner. I think it's can Cam Mitchell and Miles Harden play better because they do live in man. They want to be in that world, and they got it. They you're as good as your weakest link. And to the credit of Todd Monken in Baltimore last year, they really isolated those 2 players and took advantage of them.
After 0 catches a week ago by Matthew Golden and him playing more in the slot now, I would expect Matthew Golden in the slot against those 2 corners to have a lot more targets this week if that kind of comes to fruition as well. All right, Jake, let's look at special teams really quick. What do we need to know? I know DeAndre Carter has got the concussion issue right now that's kind of clouding him, but how does that affect the return units, and where do you see the special teams at right now for Cleveland?
Well, it was a good week 1, except for they didn't make kicks. So they let go of Dustin Hopkins before the season, a veteran who was really good for them in 23, uneven in 24, and then was really not good in the preseason again. So they had to let him go. They keep a young man named Andre Schmidt. He made everything in the preseason, made the first 2 kicks, and then misses a PAT in the second half against the Bengals, misses a 36-yarder. They lose 17-16. It's just some crushing stuff there. I mean, he was better in week 2, but then all of the other elements failed. They gave up a punt block in the first half, which absolutely was crippling to the situation, kind of trying to keep the scoreboard close, gives Baltimore the ball down to the 20-yard line. They score a touchdown. So I think they've been below average. You can't give up punt blocks. You certainly are trying to get better, I think, at the kick-off system. They haven't had any kick returns pop. And DeAndre Carter has been fine in punt return. He was like, I think in week 1, he was among the top 5 in punt return yard average. So that's fine. But he, like you said, I don't think he's going to play this week. So you're probably removing him from the equation. They put a young man named Isaiah Bond back there to take punts when he left that game abruptly last week. So I mean, Bond can run, but he's a young guy. He looked really uncomfortable fielding punts just because it's his first action doing that in the league, and it got thrown on him in the middle of a game, early portion of a game. We'll see if they keep doing that. I wouldn't. There's not a return guy I would be largely afraid of here if I were Green Bay. The punt stuff has been good. Corey Bojorquez is his name. Has really been one of the league's best in the last few years, and trust me, the Browns have needed it. But he, on that punt block, got a little dinged up last week. He's not on the injury report, so I think he's fine, but he didn't punt very well last week because I think he got a little beat up on that punt block, but we'll see if he bounces back. But the Browns have to be better there. They've got to, like, Andy, this is a team that doesn't have explosion on offense, so you got to control the football. You got to be able to run it. You got to be able to make opposing offenses really work, and you got to win special teams. They got to win on the margins is what I continue to say about them. And through 2 weeks, they've turned it over too much. The special teams hasn't been good enough. And the only thing that they've been able to rely on is a pretty strong defense. So if they can't play complementary football, it can get to the point with any of these games where they go from being in a 10-7 or 13-7 game until all of a sudden it's 35 to 13. And you're like, well, how did that happen? Well, you turned it over a couple times, and this stuff, compounds in the NFL. So their margin for error is thin. And I think they need to recognize that a bit more.
Well, the good news for you guys, the Packers special teams was not great last week either. So there could be some opportunity for Cleveland to bounce back in a special teams way this week. A couple quick ones before we get you out of here. First of all, Jake, I know you've started studying the tape and looking at the Green Bay Packers as well. What have been your impressions of the Packers so far?
Well, I mean, again, your folks know this, so I'm not going to, you guys are the expert in your area. The pass rush is just, it's swarming, man. And they do such a good job of creating disruption and then closing it off so quickly. And not that you're expecting Joe Flacco to get out and create on his own, but like, even if you had a guy who's a mover out of the pocket, and I think this will show up for you guys later in the year and obviously into the playoffs, is that ability to disrupt vertically in the pass game, but then be able to adjust on the fly because what I talk about with the guys, and I don't know, I can't speak for Jordan Love so much, but is like the AFC has these special quarterbacks that create two plays, right? There's the initial play when you drop back, hey, we're reading out this concept front side to backside, and then they have this Josh Allen, Lamar, Patrick Mahomes world where they ultimately just create a second play on the fly. They can get out of the pocket, scramble drill, find somebody, and that world is really frustrating. I think the Packers have this now ability, and what I've noticed is like they have so many young athletes and vertical disruptors in the pass game that they can get you out of that ability to find a second play within a play, which is something you need, especially if you find your way into the AFC or the NFC Championship and into the Super Bowl, is to cut that stuff off, because that's where games can swing so drastically when you face those like transformer type quarterbacks where that stands out significantly. I think the coverage stuff has been better than people are giving it credit for at this point. So I'm concerned about, can Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman and the tight ends and Njoku and Fannin, can they get separation? Can the Browns get rid of the football in time? If you got a lot of holding on to the rock, it's going to be a long day for the Cleveland offense. And I think that's what, if I were Green Bay, and I know it's a primary zone coverage team, take away the shorter portions of the field, play more cover 2, play more cover 3, where you're flooding bodies into that like 0 to 10, because the Browns have been completely uncomfortable pushing it past the 0 to 10. They'll throw some digs, they'll throw some in breakers, but they don't love living in a world where they're hanging on to it 3.5 seconds and throwing it downfield. So that's defensively where I'm concerned. And then on offense, I mean, it's just the efficiency of creating illusion, and they're doing a really good job with that. And obviously you can lean into Jacobs, who, like you said on my show yesterday, man, he's just like Nick in the world where we were living in with a great back, where they take the zeros and the ones and turn them into 4s and 5s. And those just have a compound effect over time. So I think it's paramount for the Browns to stop him from getting going and keep that part of the game bottled up and put it all on Jordan, who can do it, who can find a way, but can they efficiently make it a one-phase game? If they don't, and like I said, there's more balance there, and they're leaning into getting into those special situations where you can deploy different pass catchers into those spots that they're best at, I get really concerned at that spot. So, I mean, I from afar, and I'm not saying this because I'm coming on your show, you can check my pod in the preseason. I'm a believer in what they were doing before Micah, and I think this is just a trade that helped amplify the confidence of everybody, and it's a group that's playing clearly very with a bunch of belief in who they are and where they're going. And the hope here for me is that the Browns are catching them when the offense is not quite going as well as it needs to be, and they can make it a close contest, and then it can turn it into a coin flip. But yeah, I mean, I certainly like where Green Bay's headed.
Before we get you out of here, Jake, final prediction for the game?
I mean, I think it's like a 24-14, something like that. I think it's if the Browns can get to 20, I think it turns into a game. I think that's that you can make, if you can, like you said yesterday, if they can create some ugly score or a short field opportunity, a block or a long return or a strip sack, something like that could put them into a spot where they create a short field, would help them significantly. But it's a 7.5 line this morning that probably feels right. I would take probably the under on the game total, because I think the defenses are pretty good, but I still think the margin, something along 10 points, is probably what feels right to me at this point.
I would certainly take that. Jake, where can we find all of your incredible work?
Yeah, simple, man. We're just at brownsfilmbreakdown.com. If your folks are in the world of caring about mediocre AFC North football, you can find us there. We keep on keeping on. I like to just study content, or study the league and study the flow of play concept. It's a big film site, so that's what we do through Substack. But yeah, just at Twitter, Jake_Burns18, and Browns Film BDN, because you can't spell out the whole breakdown there. So yeah, that's where we're at, man. Thanks for having me. I love your work, Andy. I think you do a great job, man, and I'm happy we can connect. It's a bummer we only get every 4 years to do this.
Hey, we're just a few plays away from Packers Browns Super Bowl, so maybe we'll get to do it again at the end of the year. You never quite know.
Just a few.
Yeah, exactly. Jake, I appreciate it a ton. Thanks so much for coming on, and hopefully, next time they play, we'll be able to do it again, and hopefully something sooner than then.
Yeah, my pleasure, Andy, man. Best of luck the rest of the way.
Likewise. Thanks so much. That is Jake Burns. Again, you can follow him on social media at Jake_Burns18. A huge shout out to him for joining us on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. This is the Pack a Day Radio Show. We got more coming up right after this. Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show. My name is Andy Herman. Thanks so much for joining us today. Also, a huge thank you to Jake Burns for joining us, giving us a Cleveland Browns perspective ahead of Sunday's game. Reminder, the Mason Crosby Show is coming up next from 9 to 11, so do not go anywhere. And I'll say it one more time. That big interview coming up at 11:30 a.m., Middays with Thunder. Pat Murphy, 11:30 a.m. today. Really, really looking forward to that. All right, Tommy, we do also have a leadoff show coming up today. Tell me about what you got cooking up there.
Yeah, leadoff show today. Last 2 days have been much needed for the Brewers, just taking care of business against the Angels. Need to do that because Philly lost then, too, to the Dodgers yesterday. And what's weird that we have to kind of root for the Dodgers over the next couple of days, but that is now a 2.5 game lead for the top seed in the National League Central. Might as well be 3 games with the tiebreaker. And Quinn Priester pitches today, Andy, so it should be kind of a city holiday at this point to have to sit down and watch Quinn Priester pitch because the Brewers just don't lose. If he pitches May 24th, the last time they lost a game, Quinn Priester pitched it.
Yeah, it's been pretty remarkable. What are you feeling right now? You know, who's your playoff rotation as we get ready for the playoffs?
I think undeniably has to be Freddie, Woody, Quinn. I mean, yeah. I don't think that there's any other option for it. It's got to be a combination of those three, I guess, however you want to throw them out there. If it was me, I would start Woody in game 1, but I think they're going to start Freddie, obviously, with how great his season's been. And then, you know, those three, I could see maybe a Quintana start in the next round, but I don't think Jacob Mizorowski makes a start in the playoffs.
What are the odds? 7-3 to get to 100 and wins the rest of the way. They got 10 games left. Can they go 7-3 to get to 100 wins?
They can. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not there yet. That Padres series is going to be tough. They need to go 5-1 against the Angels and the Cardinals. That was kind of my thing saying at the beginning of the week, like these 6 games, you got to go 5-1 and like lock this 1 seed up, get it over with. I think that the number we should look at is 97. Like, just break the team's all-time win record, and everyone's happy after that.
I'm greedy, Tommy. I want 100 wins. I want a World Series win. I want it all, and I'm not going to settle. Hey,
they
for
can
anything less.
They can lose every game in the regular season for the rest of the year if they get the World Series ring. Who cares?
Tommy, they can lose every regular season game for the rest of the franchise's history if they get a World Series win.
Fair enough.
I will gladly. I might be willing to make that trade if that would be a World Series win this year. It's a close one. A loss every game for the remainder of my time on Earth might be a little bit rough, but I've got a Bucks championship in my lifetime. I've got 2 Packers championships in my lifetime. I don't really have. I mean, the Badgers have had a chance in basketball, right? They got to the champions,
that's so awful.
The championship game, but it's never something that I've necessarily expected at Wisconsin or Marquette as a championship in my lifetime for basketball or football. Obviously, from a Badger standpoint, but the Brewers is the one where if I could just complete the trifecta there, I would feel very great. As this is the crazy thing. As hardcore, and you know this, as a Packers fan, I would take a Brewers World Series win over a Packers Super Bowl this year.
Really?
Sure.
Wow.
I mean that, and I mean, some people might disown me for saying that. But just obviously, again, I've seen 2 Packers championships. I'm also more confident.
What about a UWGB basketball title? I know you're all in on that too.
UWGB women's basketball.
Yeah, right.
Like them making like a Sweet 16 is like a championship round. Man, I love stuff like that. But I mean, obviously, it's completely impossible for them to do anything above and beyond something like that. But no, I love me some UWG. They're going to be good this year, by the way. They're going to be really, really good this year. Kayla Teschlag got them cooking in Green Bay. Who cares about that men's basketball program? The women are fantastic. I will definitely be getting out to games this year.
Doug, take that, Doug.
Take that, Dougie Gottlieb. No, hopefully he can correct something. I mean, can't get worse, right? Can't get worse in GB for men's basketball.
Yeah,
let's get to our Potawatomi Sportsbook final thought of the day.
You got to do some smart thinking.
It's time for Andy Herman's final thought of the day.
What are you thinking?
Powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
What the hell were you thinking?
You're listening to the Pack a Day Radio Show on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, The Fan.
All right, I haven't had the chance to hear your take on this, Tommy, and I haven't had the chance to have my take on it. So I got to know the letter from Uke. All right, I need to know exactly your thoughts. What did you feel? Is it much ado about nothing? Is it something? Is it stupid? Is it fine? How are we feeling about the letter from Uke?
Stupid's the wrong word. Weird, 100% weird, uncomfortable after, maybe a little bit. But, Andy, I have had like relatives leave a letter and then pass away, and then I have the letter, right? I've had that experience. So to hear that it was happening and how it was portrayed totally seemed like, oh, okay, and maybe like I thought Pat Murphy added that best road record, right? I thought that, but I thought Uke maybe like making a little joke of like best record in Major League Baseball kind of thing. It all kind of pieced together and added up. And then days later, you're like, oh, yeah, no, that was not actually from Bob Uecker. But to have like Mark hand the note to Pat being like, you got that letter for me, Mark? Like, what's going on? And like, I understand you want to make him a part of that celebration and a part of what's happened this year with the Brewers. That was weird, man. That was weird to just make up dead guys' words. That's weird.
Cringe and awkward, I think, definitely in the lexicon there of probably what that was. It just feels like there's always something, right before. But here's my ultimate take. Here's my hot take on this, Tommy. We don't have to make this a thing. It's done. It's over with. It was awkward in the moment, but we can be done with it. It's over. It doesn't actually affect anything. What happens on the field is by far and away the most important. This is a massively fun Brewers team. We don't need any cloud over this team whatsoever. And so I am willing to bury this whole thing right now and have it rest in peace, because I don't need to hear anything more about it. And I just want this Brewers team to go out, play free, fun baseball. And I think that's what they're going to do come this postseason.
What's weirder now, the Uecker letter to the Brewers that's not real, or Cubs popping champagne yesterday down 6 games in the division? Like, what are we doing? I mean, I get it. You clinched the playoff berth. You are the Chicago Cubs. You should be in the playoffs every year. We're popping champagne for wild card berths. Like, nah. I think that like the Brewers doing just the toast at least to say, hey, we did this so far, let's continue on. Like, way more professional in my mind than let's pop the champagnes after we're not even really we don't know where we're going to play or what we're going to do.
Or if you get past that first round. Yeah.
Right.
I understand to some extent, like it's 162 game season. It's like, it's a long year, and you've got to, sort of have these little victories along the way of like, hey, but it does feel weird of like, hey, we just clinched the playoff spot and we just lost by a bunch and we're way down in the division, etc. It feels a little less fun in that situation. I like the way overall the Brewers handled that, but just a couple tweaks here and there to make it
no more fake letters from dead guys. Like, that's just mark that down for the future.
Who would your next fake letter be from? If, like, after
oh my
now
God,
that actually, I'm almost like leaning into
who's
it more.
Gonna die? Like,
no.
What do you like? I mean, that's exactly,
who's on your hit list, Tommy?
Right, like,
which Brewers grade is going down next?
What letter should be like? Can I just make one up? Like, we should just get a Babe Ruth letter at this point. Okay,
absolutely.
Like, someone who's already dead.
Like, completely lean into it. It's a letter from God. This is what he said. Here's a letter from Babe Ruth.
Yeah, Babe Ruth said, hey, Christian Yelich, great year, way to stay healthy, and holy crap, this Bryce Terang guy is so good. That's what verbatim what Babe Ruth said.
What's the name of the dog? Hank. Here's what we got, a letter from Hank. We got a letter from Hank.
Andy.
All right. I'm all for leaning into it. Make it ridiculous from here on out. All right. That's all we got. We're going to end on that beautiful note. Huge thank you to Tommy for making this thing work every single day. Shout out to Mason Crosby coming up next, 9 to 11, right here on The Fan. You find the Pack a Day podcast 365 days a year, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to that. Back tomorrow. Last show, Matt Freilich. Excited about talking with Matt tomorrow. This has been the Pack a Day radio show. Enjoy your Thursday. And of course, go Pack Go.